All right, thanks everybody for joining us today. My name's Tom Brede. I'm the Public Information Officer at RTS. I also serve as the chair of the Communications Committee for NYPTA, which is the New York Public Transit Association. Just going to go over a few housekeeping things before we get going. Number one, I believe everyone already has themselves muted, so please take a second and make sure you are. Also wanted to let everybody know that this is being recorded. So we are able to share that recording with participants and members of the media once we are finished. So if you need that and you haven't received it, you can reach out to NYPTA at info@nytransit.org, and we'll have someone put that in the chat for you as well if you need access to that. The agenda today, Carm Basile, who is the CEO of the transit system in Albany, CDTA. He's also the past president of NYPTA. He'll kick things off and kind of play the host for the press conference. After Carm, we'll hear from Assemblyman Bill Magnarelli, the chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee. And then we have some transit advocates from across the state that we'll hear from. Carm will then wrap things up, and then we'll open it up to questions from the media. So thanks again, everyone. And I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Carm.
Thanks, Tom. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us where we talk about the importance of improved mobility across the state. I was thinking this morning about the message and how we wanted to portray our industry. And I can tell you, I've been doing this for a long time. Over 40 years, I've been here at CDTA in this business. We've not ever experienced anything like we've experienced the last 2 years. But through all the problems, the trials and tribulations, has come a realization that better mobility, better connections are what the people of New York State want and need. That has become clear through the pandemic that what we do, the work we do, is so important. And sometimes it takes something as serious as a pandemic to show your community what you do and why you're important. So that's sort of the backdrop of today's event, because we're talking about funding and we're talking about, at least to date, record funding. The governor, in her executive budget request, provides a 13% increase to fund public transportation systems upstate and a 36% increase for systems downstate. Thanks to the hard work in the Assembly and Senate since then, they've countered and said, hey, everyone should have a 36% increase in state operating assistance. It's obvious that they've heard our message. Our message is transit and mobility is not different in Buffalo than it is in Poughkeepsie or New York City or Binghamton. Treat us all the same. Let us continue to do the work we're doing to develop new ways for people to travel, to develop new opportunities for people, and to connect everyone to economic opportunity. So we've got a week to go, probably less than a week, assuming an on-time state budget, less than a week to go. And we want to mobilize everyone who speaks on our behalf. And that's really why our advocates are here today. Growing up, my mother used to tell me all the time that it's always better when someone says nice things about you than when you say nice things about yourself. So that's why we've invited our advocates here to be with us. But before we get going, I can think of no bigger advocate, no better advocate than probably our best friend in the Assembly. Bill Magnarelli from Syracuse chairs the Assembly Transportation Committee. I've gotten to know him over the last few years, gotten to know him pretty well. A straight shooter. He tells you exactly what it is. Sometimes you may not like what he says, but it's straight up and it's factual and it's good. He is a supporter of the work that we do. He's interested. He takes time to understand what we do. He's visited our property and spent 2 hours here asking questions, walking around, asking us how we do this and why we do that. Very unusual. He's a hands-on guy. Without further ado, our friend Bill Magnarelli.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate those comments. I don't know how much I deserve all of them, but we keep trying though anyway. And I want to thank you, big thank you to the New York Public Transit Association and its member transit authorities for this invitation to speak today. Since I became chair of the Assembly Transportation Committee in 2019, improving the quality and the availability of public transit has been one of my top priorities, especially for upstate New York. New York will never meet its climate goals without a robust and reliable public transit system. Unfortunately, investment in upstate transit has lagged behind the downstate systems. And I want everyone to know, I'm a big advocate for the downstate systems as well. What we need is a good mass transit system across the state. The Assembly's One House budget resolution seeks to fix this with an unprecedented investment in our upstate transit systems. As Carm said earlier, our proposal in the Assembly will fulfill NYPTA's request for a 5-year, 50% increase in state transit operating assistance, STOA, funding for upstate systems by providing $315.2 million for upstate STOA, an increase of $54.6 million over the executive budget proposal. This increase reflects the first year of a plan to increase upstate transit operating assistance by 50% over 5 years, as the upstate systems have requested. This proposal provides a parity with the increased non-MTA downstate systems are receiving in the executive budget, and provides our upstate authorities with the resources they need to increase service, improve reliability, and add innovative ideas to increase ridership. The Assembly also supports transit by providing $200 million in capital support over the next 5 years, including $100 million for upstate systems. Additionally, I have pushed for an additional $10 million in the budget, and I know the Senate might have done a little bit more here, so I'm okay with that. But we've pushed for $10 million in the budget to allow upstate authorities to establish pilot programs for on-demand microtransit to see how new technology can increase ridership and get public transit to underserved and rural areas. Again, I'm excited and hopeful, working with the Senate, we can get this funding in the final budget. I'm working on that even as we speak, okay? These investments would be truly transformative for our upstate systems. I want to thank NYPTA again, its members and allies, for advocating so strongly for public transit. With your support, we can get these needed investments and help New York have a first-class transit network. Thank you.
Thanks, Assemblyman. If we were in person and we were in a big room, I would ask for a standing ovation.
Well, thanks.
You know, you and I have talked about this now for several years, and what we've talked about is adequate funding, long-term commitment, so that we can plan and understand what our future is going to look like, and a closer working relationship. You've delivered on all three of those, so I thank you very much.
Well, we haven't, we've got to get through the next week.
Yeah, well, let me know how you're doing. So we're going to shift gears a little bit. That's sort of the view from Albany. Actually, Assemblyman Magnarelli and I are probably, I don't know, 3 miles apart, but that's the view from Albany. Let's get a view now from 3 or 4 of our advocates. I'm not sure that's a good word, right? Advocates. It sounds kind of, formal. These people use these systems. The people that we're going to hear from use our systems, understand our systems, and appreciate the connections that we provide to economic opportunity. So let's go 300 miles west and hear from Doug Funke in Buffalo. Doug represents the Citizens for Regional Transit in Buffalo. Doug, you there?
Can you hear me okay?
Good.
Okay, real good. Yeah, again, my name is Doug Funke. I'm the president of Citizens for Regional Transit. We are We do consider ourselves a transit advocacy organization in Buffalo, New York. My comments, we are at a critical juncture. We are facing two existential crises, both of which call for new and significant investments in public transit. These crises are climate change and social equity. The New York State Climate Leadership and Protection Act, or CLCPA, now New York State law, lays out specific requirements for addressing climate change. It calls for reducing greenhouse gas generation by 40% by 2030 and by 85% by 2050. The largest contributing segment for greenhouse gas generation is transportation, with most of that coming from private vehicles. The draft scoping plan for meeting the CLCPA requirements calls for doubling transit service and investing in high capacity transit. We concur with these steps and that these steps are crucial and critical, but we can't wait until the scoping plan is finalized to start improving transit. We need to start now. The second crisis is social equity. According to a recent report from the Buffalo's Partnership for the Public Good, commuting by transit can take more than twice as long as driving, and many jobs are not accessible by transit at all. But not everyone can afford a car. Recent NFTA surveys indicate that 48% of transit riders earn less than $15,000 per year, and 66% earn less than $25,000 per year. The survey also shows that higher income citizens are very underrepresented in transit relative to their population levels. They can afford to drive, relegating the poor to infrequent bus service while contributing to the climate change problem. The solution to both crises is better public transit, that is higher frequency bus service integrated with a robust, high-speed, high-capacity transit network. The goal must be to make transit a convenient and attractive alternative to driving. In Buffalo, for example, we are calling for the expansion of Buffalo's light rail, along with more frequent bus service. Other urban New York State cities may be better served with fast, high-capacity bus rapid transit or trolley networks. Regardless of the specific solution, the bottom line is that we need better transit systems that can provide good mobility for everyone while reducing reliance on cars. Even electric cars can't solve this problem. They are 50% made out of plastic, with tires that pollute our streams and soils when they wear. They are unaffordable for many, and they demand more and more CO2 producing concrete and asphalt. The timing for making transit improvements is good. For the first time in a long time, there is federal money available for transit. We ask our state and local legislators to continue prioritizing transit projects and providing the necessary state matching funds. We call on the legislature to pass a 5-year transit capital plan that includes the necessary investments, both upstate and for upstate and downstate transit systems. For example, making progress on Buffalo's Metro extension to Amherst and initiating the necessary studies for subsequent extensions. I want to give a thank you to Senator Kennedy and Assembly Member Magnarelli and their committees for their leadership in addressing both operational and capital needs. Both the one House bills include significant increases in the state transit operating assistance funding and transit capital funding that will help us meet transit needs of the future and provide the matching funds necessary for any federal funds that we receive. We look forward to working with you as we make the transit improvements that are critical for meeting the mobility needs for everyone while mitigating the climate crisis. Thank you. Can't hear you, Carm.
Sorry about that, Doug.
That's okay.
Sometimes my fingers don't work or my fingers don't move as fast as my mind, or maybe it's the other way around. But thank you. Well said. Well done. So we're going to move down the thruway now. We were in Buffalo. We're going to move over to Rochester, or down east to Rochester. and hear from Jason Partyka with Reconnect Rochester. Jason?
Yep, thanks, Carm. So my name is Jason Partyka, and I'm one of the traffic advocates for Reconnect Rochester. Reconnect Rochester advocates for a multimodal transportation network, so walking, biking, and taking the bus. Here in Rochester, we've been able to kick off a redesigned transit network called Reimagine that focuses on more frequent bus service in the city core. And it's been a great program to start. There's been a couple of hiccups due to COVID and some work, not necessarily workforce issues, but just trying to find the talent in general, right? And so that's one of the things we're asking for increased funding to help address some of those things. One of the reasons frequent transit is important, I guess I get to use myself for example. Just earlier this week, I had to rush out. I had a dental cleaning first thing in the morning. And so whenever something disrupts your morning routine, you're always rushing. And I forgot to take some diabetes medication I'm supposed to take every morning. But thankfully, I'm lucky. I live on a 15-minute bus route. So I was able to stop at home, run into my house, take my medicine, and then still get back to work at a reasonable time. And, it's stuff like that, missed mornings like that over the course of a lifetime can really affect your health in the future. And, I'm sure there's a lot of people, Assemblyman Magnarelli's colleagues trying to figure out how to pay for healthcare in this year's budget that wish we had made these kind of investments 20 years ago, right? So we could have a healthy population who have prevented a lot of healthcare issues that are happening today. And these kind of investments, a transit dollar invested today saves $2 in healthcare spending, and nobody wants to see like a transportation dollar become $2 healthcare dollars in the budget. So we're hoping that the governor is able to sign off on these in the spending increases that are in the one House bills, and I think it's something that'll help us here in Rochester. It'll help us get to work, and it'll help us live healthier lives. Thanks.
Thanks, Jason. You spoke about frequency, and we always talk about frequency among our industry group, but I don't think people outside of our industry group appreciate really what we mean when we say frequency and what it brings. But think about bus service that's every 10 or 15 minutes versus every 30 or 40 minutes. You almost guarantee ridership and loyalty when you have frequencies that are 15 minutes or less, as opposed to 30 or 40 minutes. I mean, you really can't convince people that you're a reliable option if it's 30, 40, 50 minutes. And in your case, think of the difference that would have made if that bus route was 40 or 50 or an hour or something of the sort. It's just not convenient. It's not an alternative that is, in my mind, sellable to our community. So we talk about frequency a lot. I think we have to explain what we mean by that, and then talk about the results, the products, the byproduct of good frequent bus service. I'm glad that that's happening in Rochester. Okay, we keep moving east. We're in Syracuse now, and we're going to hear from Sharon Sherman, who represents the Moving People Transportation Coalition. Sharon?
Hi, thanks for having me. And of course, we know Assemblyman Magnarelli very well for the great advocate he is on transportation and other issues. I'm also the executive director of the Greater Syracuse Tenants Network. And we joined other advocates, neighborhood groups, unions to form a group to plan over 5 years ago for the I-81 changes. And we decided that our name should be Moving People Transportation Coalition, because our concern is people, not cars. And we also deal with bike issues to a small extent, and we're moving more and more into our concern about bus transit. Carm, when you speak about the realities here in Syracuse, due to cutbacks in service, my Vista volunteer, who is low income, it takes her 3 hours to get to a 15-minute doctor's appointment in the middle of the business day, because the bus that she's on Medicaid. So she doesn't get to choose her doctors and her primary care physician. And the bus, when she starts out in the middle of the afternoon, runs once an hour. So if her appointment is 45, she has to take an even earlier bus. And then when she gets finished sometimes in the middle of the day, the bus is the particular bus is more than an hour apart on regular schedule. So, you know, we're talking about the reality of people. So this is why we are so focused on this money being very, very important to increase the frequency and the hours. You can tell from my accent, I grew up in New York City, and we're used to, you know, transit that runs, especially when I was, you know, in high school and college, very frequently. You can go everywhere and people can live without cars, but poor people cannot afford cars and are never going to be able to afford cars. So that's our focus, not only jobs, getting to jobs, but just being able to have a life, being able on a weekend to go visit grandma and not have just enormous hours consumed in it. So we are very supportive that both houses have come up with one house bills that come back to the money that we were asking for. I think we did our own press conference in 2018 or 2019. It must have been 2018, where we had riders and advocates asking for that increase of 50% over 5 years. And I think this is finally getting the upstate systems to it. And I hope that the governor's question, being an upstater, as to, you know, I hope she's pressed by the Assembly and Senate that we would have hoped she would have had more recognition of the needs of upstate. And that's all I'm going to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Sharon. And that, listen, that frequency example is perfect. That's what we're talking about. And I know for a fact that Brian Schultz and his team at Centro already have that money shifted into frequency and span of service. They realize that needs to be fixed, and that's what the money will go for. We have to keep explaining, though, what we mean by frequency and what the byproduct is. Byproduct is, you know, we've seen it here. Every time we increase frequency on a route, immediate ridership gain. New people use the service, and people who have been loyal to us use it more. It's tried and true. It will work, and it increases ridership. More ridership, more money, more opportunity for everybody involved. So we've come all the way down the thruway here to Albany, and we're going to go straight south to our good friend in New York City, Danny Pearlstein. Danny is with the Riders Alliance, and he'll give you a little different perspective now. He's going to give you the perspective of the MTA. Danny?
Thank you so much, Carmen. It's so great to be here with our allies and colleagues from across the state. It is much too rare that we do this. You know, it's one of the strange things that came out of the pandemic that we're able to be here together in a virtual space and do this. But, you know, just hearing stories like Jason's, and of course, listening to the music, Sharon's voice, thinking, of course, you know, my mother is also named Sharon, also grew up in the city, and just thinking that you're not from Syracuse, I can tell, you know, you're a kindred spirit. But just hearing from fellow advocates and fellow transit advocates in particular about the value of frequent service, you know, is revolutionary. Because I've lived upstate, I've lived in the Finger Lakes, I have family all across the state. I spend a lot of time in the North Country, and what's missing is the frequency, because that means that transit can't be a way of life for enough New Yorkers. And with this funding in the budget, more New Yorkers will be able to experience and have options more similar to what we have in the city. And that means a bigger, stronger, more robust constituency for public transit, which is the direction the future is taking us, right? More and more people being able to rely on things other than their cars. We're seeing with right now, and with spiraling gas prices, you know, what the harm is in having only one option to rely on. Giving people more options is so critical, and it's great to see that in this budget. You know, where I want to draw a little bit of attention and nuance is that the money in the governor's budget and in the one House resolutions for upstate is coming out of the general fund, as it should. This is a great moment and opportunity for general fund investment. The MTA's money is not. So while the MTA is seeing an increase in dedicated taxes, which enables it to postpone a fare hike, which is very important, we're not seeing any new general fund investments. And we had asked, the context is a little bit different, but we had asked for more frequency on our end that we are not yet seeing this year. We haven't yet seen from the houses or from the governor. We want to see 6-minute subway and bus service on most lines throughout the day. And that is something we'll be coming back for. This is the nature of Albany. We're not going anywhere. If we don't get what we want now, we will be back for what we need next year. And we're excited to have a growing constituency and a growing group of advocates around the state to amplify our voices and speak loudly as transit riders for what we need. So thank you so much for having me, and so great to be here with everybody.
Thanks, Danny. The message of perseverance is important. We've been talking about a 5-year 50% commitment for a number of years. As somebody with Magnarelli, I think, said early on, we've been talking about this for 3 years. So this is a long-term game. It's not something that you talk to legislators about one time or 1 month, 1 week. It's something that's persistent and consistent. So thanks, Danny, for the message of perseverance. So you've gotten a picture of how we can change New York, how we can change how people travel, how people connect, how people live. It's not been easy to get to where we are. We're not at the finish line yet. We're in the red zone. If you're a football fan, we're within the 20-yard line. Now we need everybody to speak on our behalf. Talk to your legislators, remind them of the need, talk to them about what you do and how you do it, and be supportive of each other. So I know we have some members of the media on our Zoom call, and I'm going to open it up to questions from anyone who has a question, and I will hopefully direct you to the right person. Any questions? Crickets. That must mean we did a great job. Well, if there are no questions, I want to thank everybody for being with us this morning. I especially want to thank Chairman Magnarelli, who has been a straight up advocate for us. He has been a mentor for us. He's directed us to different areas of the Capitol. He's told us who we need to talk to. He's told us what we need to ask for. And then he's been supportive of us in many, many ways. So Chairman Magnarelli, thank you very much. Thank you to our advocates who are on the call today. And thanks to everybody who was here listening. Hopefully you take this information and in the next week or so, support us and support what we do. Our communities and the people that we serve deserve better connections and better transit. Thanks and have a great weekend.
Oh, 1 second. I think Doug had a question.
I was, if Assembly Member Magnarelli was still on, I was just going to ask him how we could be helpful to him and his advocacy for us. That was all. And give him a chance to respond to our statements if he's still on. He may be gone by now.
I'm not sure he's with us.
I'm still here. Thank you.
Okay.
I think, we're in the last stages of the budget. I know that, the Senate and the Assembly are basically, I think, on the same page as it comes down to upstate transit. So I think we need to continually talk to all the legislators, especially if you can get to our leadership and to the governor's office and let them know just how important this is. I think that's it at this point in time. It's a matter of just keeping it on the table, as we say in Albany. I don't want it to fall off, because that's what happens to a lot of asks. You work very hard to get them into the one house budget, and then in the negotiations, they fall off the table. I don't want them to fall off the table this year. That's what we're pushing for. So call anybody you know. I've always told everyone who's come in my office, I have no ego here. I don't want it all to come through me or anything like that. You need to talk to other people and get out there. So that would be my advice.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks for someone. Anyone else? Okay. Everybody have a great weekend. Thanks again for being with us. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye now.